So the piece that I chose for my English project is a section of a novel called Little Bee by Chris Cleave. Um, it's about a 16-year-old Nigerian refugee who, after a couple comes on vacation and is forced to make a really difficult decision involving Little Bee. She ends up with the husband's driver's license. And after escaping Nigeria, she is in a detention center in England for about a year. And then during this time, Andrew, the husband, sort of because of social, as well as the reason why she has his driver's license, Little B does, commits suicide and leaves his 6-year-old son, Charlie, and his wife, Sarah, behind. And so during this year, this happens, and then Little B gets out of the detention center and finds her way to Surrey, where she meets up with Sarah and Charlie, who Sarah is not all that happy to see her, but she lets her stay, and Little B creates a really strong bond with Charlie, who's this adorable 6-year-old boy who refuses to take off a Batman costume after his father's death. And the part at which I'm going to read from the book is towards the end, when Sarah, Charlie, and Little B travel back to Nigeria because Sarah is going to write a piece for her magazine about the political reasons why Little B was forced to leave and why she's without her family. And they're at the beach right now for a day of fun. The only problem is Little B is basically a refugee, or not a refugee, but a criminal. And the soldiers at the beach have just spotted her, and she's being persecuted and basically hunted like animals. So she's just seen that they've spotted her, and she's sort of has a moment with Charlie. After a long time, Charlie stopped sobbing, and he turned his face up toward mine. I peeled back his Batman mask a little so I could see his face, and he smiled at me. I smiled back at him. In that moment that the soldier's leader gave me, that one moment of dignity he offered me as one human being to another before he sent his men across the hard sand to fetch me. Here it was then, finally. The quietest part of the late afternoon. I smiled down at Charlie, and I understood that he would be free now, even if I would not. In this way, the life that was in me would find its home now in him. It was not a sad feeling. I felt my heart take off lightly like a butterfly, and I thought, yes, this is it. Something has survived in me, something that does not need to run anymore, because it is worth more than all the money in the world, and its currency, its true home, is the living. And not just the living in this particular country or in that particular country, but the secret, irresistible heart of the living. I smiled back at Charlie, and I knew that the hopes of this whole human world could fit inside one soul. This is a good trick. This is called globalization. I really like this part of the book for a couple of reasons. One is I really like how it redefines globalization. I think that it's really interesting when you take a word that is really conceptual and really well known and sort of turn it into something else and give it a tone that it never had before. Also, I like how this pretty lengthy paragraph really captures probably less than a second, or less than a minute at least, and that feels really human to me, because a lot of times big moments aren't like an hour or two long, they're very quick. I also like the style that it's written in. It's sort of somewhere between poetry and prose. It has a lot of the repetition that you see in poetry. It also uses imagery that I feel is really poetic. So I like how it sort of walks the line in between those two. Also, the tone feels really human. It's sort of hard to pin down. It's not bittersweet, and it's definitely not happy. It sort of has its own tone that's all its own, and it's all itself, and it's sort of undefinable, which I also think makes it incredibly human, because a lot of times what happens isn't easily given a definition. I also like the way it plays with the idea of the sort of Carl Jung theory of collective unconscious, and how that there's something that sort of connects all human beings on a really basic level. And then it takes that, which is a really human concept and sort of optimistic and hippie, and makes it a political statement and connects it, because its next line after the hopes of this whole human world could fit inside one soul, and then it says this is called globalization, after calling it a trick, of course. So it takes a really human moment and makes it political in a way that makes the statement, but makes it an unforgettable statement, because I think that a lot of times when you have such a really political point to make, it becomes overly political, and people can sort of distance themselves from it and forget about it because it's sort of cut off from all human ties. But the fact that he takes a human moment to make his political statement, that is really the core of this novel, makes it unforgettable and moving in a way that if it was solely sort of factual and political based, it wouldn't have. And I think it's going to stay with me because this is an issue that's really pertinent to our generation, and globalization is going to be a concept that we all have to grapple with at some point or another, and there's a bunch of definitions to it, and I think it's going to be really important for me to remember, and I guess for everybody to remember, that it doesn't just have one definition, and especially not just that one definition that we might learn in a book, like a history textbook or a dictionary or whatever. The fact that it's a really human issue and it has multiple definitions, and the fact that this can give me a really different way of looking at it than I would have before is going to stay with me. And also, it's a great reminder that some of the big issues that we play with affect actual human beings and not just a hypothetical concept. So I really enjoyed this because it redefines something that I may not have been able to connect with before, and the fact that the way it connects it is something that I'll never forget, and will hopefully later on help me deal with an issue that I might not have been as able to deal with as I am now. So it's a wonderful book and a wonderful passage, and I'm happy to share it with you.